The patrol car hurtled from behind, its headlights shining directly onto the stalled sedan by the roadside. Without a second's hesitation, Lieutenant Harlan slammed the accelerator to the floor, deliberately steered straight ahead, and rammed directly into the rear trunk of Maya's old car. The violent impact caved in the rear bumper, leaving the trunk lid mangled and crushed. Not a single skid mark, no injuries, a crash that seemed accidental, but was anything but. Maya stood frozen on the roadside, her phone still pressed to her ear on the active rescue call. Exactly 2 minutes later, the roar of heavy engines overpowered the night air. 11 sleek, black-armored SUVs tore in from all directions at high speed, sweeping their headlights as they encircled the scene in an absolute lockdown formation. Harlan smirked triumphantly, assuming reinforcements had arrived to clear the area, while Maya clenched her fists, suffocated by the terrifying belief that this web of power had completely swallowed her whole. Only minutes before the collision, the situation had appeared ordinary. Maya's dark blue sedan had lost power while she was driving through an industrial district outside Atlanta, and she had guided it onto the shoulder before the engine stopped completely. She turned on the hazard lights, pulled the parking brake firmly into place, set a reflective warning triangle behind the vehicle, and moved well away from the traffic lane before calling for help. "Roadway rescue. This is Karen. Are you in a safe location?" "Yes," Maya replied, keeping her eyes on the sedan. "The car is fully off the road, and I'm standing about 20 feet away. Is anyone still inside the vehicle?" "No." "Any injuries?" "No, ma'am. The engine died while I was driving, but I got it onto the shoulder." "Are the hazard lights on?" "Yes." "And the parking brake is engaged?" "I checked it twice." Karen confirmed Maya's location and arranged for a tow truck, which was expected to arrive in approximately 25 minutes. Maya remained on the line while the dispatch information was processed, speaking calmly and answering each question in order. Her manner was careful because she understood that accuracy mattered whenever a routine problem began attracting official attention. A pair of headlights soon appeared behind the car. When Maya recognized a patrol vehicle, she raised one hand to show that she was aware of its approach and did not need emergency assistance. Inside the cruiser, Officer Eli Turner leaned forward and studied the shoulder. "Disabled vehicle," he said. "Hazards are on, and she's already out of the car." Harlan did not respond. His attention remained fixed on the sedan's trunk, even though the open traffic lane gave him ample room to pass. Eli glanced at him. "We should stop behind her." Harlan reached toward the dashboard and switched off the patrol camera. The red indicator disappeared. "Why did you turn that off?" Eli asked. "Don't touch the controls." "Lieutenant, the lane is clear." Harlan kept both eyes on the sedan. "From this moment on, you remember what I tell you to remember." Before Eli could answer, Harlan accelerated. The patrol car crossed toward the shoulder and struck the sedan from behind. The sound of collapsing metal carried through the otherwise quiet road, followed by the sharp break of the taillight. Maya's car moved only a few inches because the rear wheels remained locked. Karen's voice rose through the phone. "Miss Williams, what just happened?" "A police vehicle hit my car. Are you still safe?" "Yes. I'm away from the road, and I'm not injured." Harlan stepped out of the cruiser and adjusted his jacket before looking directly at the crushed trunk. He did not examine the front of his own vehicle, ask whether Maya needed assistance, or inspect the road for any mechanical cause. Instead, he raised his radio and reported the version he had already chosen. Unit 1217. Collision involving an unsecured civilian vehicle. Possible hazardous equipment on scene. Requesting immediate containment. Maya watched him finish the transmission. "My car was not moving." Harlan turned toward her. "Stay where you are. I was standing here before you arrived. The vehicle rolled backward into my cruiser." "No, it didn't." The parking brake was engaged, and the roadside operator heard the collision. His expression remained controlled. "End the call." Maya did not raise her voice or move toward him. "This call was active before you arrived, and it is being recorded. I gave you an instruction." Maya kept the phone against her ear. "Karen, please preserve the complete recording. My vehicle was parked on the shoulder, the parking brake was engaged, and I was outside the car when the patrol vehicle struck it." "I have that noted," Karen said. The call is still recording. For the first time, Harlan looked directly at the phone, but his attention quickly returned to the damaged trunk. "Do you have electronic equipment stored in that vehicle?" he asked. Maya studied him before answering. His question had nothing to do with a stalled engine or a supposed parking brake failure. "Why are you asking about the contents of my car?" "Answer the question. That does not explain why you drove into a stationary vehicle." A slight change passed through Harlan's face. Not enough to reveal alarm, but enough to confirm that she had challenged the part of the incident he wanted left unexplored. "It explains more than you understand," he said. The passenger door of the patrol car opened, and Eli stepped onto the road. His eyes moved from the warning triangle to the open lane, and then to the crushed rear of Maya's sedan. Maya faced him. "You saw the car standing still?" Eli appeared ready to answer, but Harlan cut him off. "Officer Turner, secure the perimeter." Eli remained silent. He had witnessed the approach, the disabled vehicle, the clear lane, and Harlan's deliberate turn toward the shoulder. Yet he lowered his eyes rather than contradict his superior. Maya understood that his silence was already becoming part of the official version. Before she could address him again, the sound of powerful engines rose from beyond the warehouses. Headlights appeared at the northern entrance to the road, then at the southern end, followed by additional vehicles entering from two side streets. 3 armored SUVs approached from one direction, 4 from another, and 4 more closed the remaining access points. Within seconds, the 11 black vehicles formed a complete perimeter around Maya, the patrol cruiser, and the damaged sedan. Harlan straightened as he watched them take position. The uncertainty that had briefly entered his expression disappeared. "There," he said. "The people who can settle this have arrived." Maya looked from one dark windshield to the next. None of the vehicles carried markings she could identify from where she stood, and no one immediately stepped out. Their engines remained running while their headlights covered the entire scene. She considered what Harlan had just reported over the radio. Hazardous equipment, immediate containment, an unsecured civilian vehicle. If the arriving force accepted his account before hearing hers, the sedan would be seized, the roadside call dismissed, and Eli's silence converted into supporting testimony. Harlan turned toward her with renewed confidence. "You thought that phone call was going to protect you?" Maya said nothing. Her compliance had been precise from the moment the engine failed, but she knew that procedure offered little protection when one man controlled the first report and another witness refused to speak. For several seconds, every SUV door remained closed. Then they opened almost simultaneously. Personnel stepped into the headlights and moved through the scene with disciplined coordination. One group blocked the roadway, another approached the damaged vehicles, and a third spread toward the surrounding buildings. A woman's voice carried across the road, firm enough to stop every movement near the sedan. "No one opens the trunk." Harlan's expression changed, and for the first time since the collision, he no longer appeared certain that the arriving force belonged to him. The personnel who emerged from the armored SUVs did not rush toward Maya or Harlan. They moved in disciplined teams, each group taking a separate responsibility without shouting or displaying unnecessary force. 2 people redirected the sparse nighttime traffic at the northern entrance, while another pair moved toward the patrol cruiser and the disabled sedan with cameras already recording. Several others spread toward the warehouse entrances, checking the surrounding area before taking fixed positions along the road. Their uniforms carried patches, but the headlights and distance made them impossible to read clearly. Nothing about their arrival gave Maya an immediate answer. They could have belonged to a state unit, a federal team, or a private security detail working for people powerful enough to operate without explanation. Harlan recovered quickly from his surprise. He stepped forward with the confidence of a man accustomed to being recognized before he introduced himself. "Lieutenant Brent Harlan, Atlanta Police Department," he announced. "This is an active local scene involving a civilian vehicle collision and possible unauthorized equipment. I requested containment." The woman who appeared to be in command walked toward him at an even pace. She was in her late 50s, with dark hair threaded with gray, and an expression that showed neither hostility nor deference. "Did you request these vehicles?" she asked. Harlan hesitated for only a moment. "I requested immediate support. That was not my question." His jaw tightened. "Who are you?" The woman did not answer. Instead, she looked past him toward the two damaged vehicles. No one touches either car until the scene has been documented. This is under my jurisdiction, Harlan said. The civilian vehicle rolled backward into my cruiser. I also have reason to believe it contains electronic material connected to an ongoing investigation. Maya watched the exchange carefully. Harlan had already adjusted his story. At first, he had called the contents hazardous. Now he was describing them as investigative material. Although he had not opened the car or asked her a single legitimate question about what might be inside, the woman turned to a technician standing near the sedan, photographed the shoulder, the warning triangle, the wheels, and the entire approach lane before anything is moved. Get measurements from the patrol vehicle to the point of impact. Yes, ma'am. Harlan stepped toward the trunk. I need to inspect that area. Two members of the arriving team moved into his path without touching him. The woman's voice remained calm. You will not open the trunk. You cannot interfere with a police investigation. I am preserving a disputed scene. There is no dispute. Her vehicle was unsecured. Maya spoke before Harlan could continue. The parking brake was engaged. I confirmed that with roadside assistance before he arrived. Harlan turned sharply. Miss Williams, you were told not to interfere. I am answering a factual claim about my own vehicle. The woman looked at Maya for the first time. Are you injured? No. Were you inside the vehicle at the time of impact? No. I was standing where I am now, and the rescue call was active. A man from the convoy approached Maya but stopped several feet away. Maya Williams? Yes. He glanced at the phone, still held near her ear. Is the operator still connected? Karen answered before Maya could. Her voice came through the speaker, clear enough for those nearest to hear. I'm still here. This call began before the patrol car arrived, and the collision is on the recording. The man nodded. Please keep the recording intact. We will provide the company with a formal preservation request. Harlan stared at him. You are taking instructions from a roadside dispatcher now. No, the man replied. I am preserving an independent witness. Maya noticed the distinction immediately. He had not called her a suspect, and he had not asked her to surrender the phone. Instead, he moved slightly to one side and positioned himself between her and Harlan. That small change in placement altered the entire scene. Harlan noticed it too. He addressed the woman again. I want identification from everyone operating inside this perimeter. You will receive it through the appropriate channel. I am the ranking local officer, and you are also a participant in the collision. The answer silenced him for several seconds. Officer Turner remained beside the cruiser, his hands hanging stiffly at his sides. One of the technicians asked him who had been driving. Harlan answered before Eli could speak. I was. The technician wrote it down. Was the dash camera operating? It failed during the approach. Before or after the vehicle entered this road, I would have to check the system. Eli looked toward the dashboard, then toward Harlan. The woman noticed. Officer Turner, did you observe the camera fail? Eli swallowed. I saw the indicator go off. Did it go off on its own? Harlan stepped closer. He has already told you what he saw. I asked Officer Turner. Eli's eyes moved between the woman and his lieutenant. Maya could see the calculation taking place behind his expression. A truthful answer would challenge Harlan in front of a dozen witnesses. A false one would place Eli inside the story Harlan was constructing. I don't know what caused it, Eli said at last. The woman studied him for a moment, then nodded to the technician. Record that answer exactly. Harlan's face remained controlled, but the muscles along his jaw tightened. As the documentation continued, he walked past Maya slowly enough to speak without being overheard by most of the team. Your father kept it hidden for a long time, he said. That impact should have finished what he started. Maya kept her eyes on the road ahead. The words struck harder than the damage to the car because they confirmed that Harlan had not chosen the sedan at random. He knew the vehicle had belonged to her father, and he knew there was something inside it worth destroying. If you feel for Maya as she realizes that Harlan deliberately targeted her father's car and tried to destroy the secret hidden inside it, please like this video to show your support for her. And tell us in the comments where you are watching from, because someone near you may be watching Maya's story alongside you right now. She turned her head only slightly. "You should be careful what you say while so many people are recording." Harlan's expression changed for an instant, but he recovered. That sounded like a threat. It was advice. Before he could respond, the woman called Maya away from him. "Miss Williams, come with me." Maya remained where she was. "Who are you?" The woman considered the question, then removed a credential wallet from inside her jacket. She held it, where Maya could see it, but not Harlan. "Rachel Kim," she said. "Technical Operations Chief for a joint state and federal task force." Maya read the identification twice. The tension in her shoulders eased, although not completely. Rachel continued in a lower voice. "You are under a special protection order. These vehicles were deployed to secure you and any evidence connected to your assignment." Maya looked past her at the black SUVs. Only minutes earlier, their arrival had seemed to confirm that Harlan's reach extended far beyond the patrol car. Now they stood between him and the trunk he had tried to destroy. "Why did it take 2 minutes?" Maya asked. "We were already positioned nearby. Then someone knew where I was." Rachel did not offer reassurance she could not support. "That is one of the questions we need to answer." Harlan had moved closer again. "What assignment?" Rachel closed the credential wallet. "That information is restricted. You expect me to accept that while she is transporting hidden technology in a private vehicle?" Rachel turned toward him. "I expect you to remain outside the preservation boundary." The tow supervisor arrived with a flatbed and approached cautiously. He was an older man wearing a reflective jacket over work clothes, and he removed his cap before addressing Rachel. "Ma'am, I was told there are 2 vehicles under hold. I need written instructions before I touch either one." "You will get them," Rachel said. "Both vehicles are to be moved separately, under independent seal." Harlan objected. "The sedan goes to the municipal impound facility." "No," Rachel replied. "Not until a neutral order determines custody. It may contain evidence in a local criminal matter. It may also contain evidence of official misconduct." The words landed heavily enough that even the technicians paused. Harlan looked toward Maya, and she saw that he finally understood the convoy had not arrived to clear the road for him. It had arrived because someone already considered him part of the danger. Rachel led Maya several yards away while the teams continued measuring the scene. "How many people knew your route?" she asked. 3, possibly 4. "The road was changed less than an hour before I left." "Who approved the change?" "I received it through the protected scheduling system." Rachel's attention shifted toward a tall man standing beside one of the SUVs with a tablet in his hand. He approached before she called him. "Daniel Voss," Rachel said. "Senior Systems Engineer. He manages route authentication and vehicle synchronization." Voss gave Maya a polite nod. "Miss Williams, was my location accessed tonight?" Maya asked. "I have already checked. There is no sign of unauthorized entry." Rachel looked at him. "You completed a full access review already?" "The main logs are clean." His answer came too quickly. Maya noticed a live map on his tablet, showing the industrial road and the precise position of her sedan. Before she could study the screen, Voss closed the window and replaced it with a diagnostic panel. "How long has that map been open?" she asked. Voss smiled without warmth. "Standard, operational display." Rachel's expression did not change, but she took the tablet from him. "I want the raw access records, not the summary." "Of course." When he walked away, Maya lowered her voice. He knew exactly where to look. Rachel watched Voss return to the SUV. So did Harlan. The sedan was lifted carefully onto the flatbed, its damaged trunk secured beneath a heavy evidence cover. As it moved past Maya, she saw the metal folded inward around the place her father had modified years before. She pressed the old ignition key into her palm. The night had changed again. Harlan was no longer in control of the scene, but someone had given him the information needed to reach it. The protection surrounding Maya was real, yet it was no longer enough to make her feel safe. Before the flatbed pulled away, Rachel issued one final instruction. "No one opens that vehicle unless I am present." Across the road, Daniel Voss glanced down at his tablet. For less than a second, another location window appeared before he closed it. The armored convoy carried Maya away from the industrial road shortly after midnight, while the two damaged vehicles traveled under separate seals to a secure state facility several miles away. Rachel Kim rode in the SUV beside her, answering only the questions she could address without compromising the investigation. Daniel Voss occupied the front passenger seat with his tablet angled toward the window, and although he appeared focused on system diagnostics, Maya noticed that he never once asked how Harlan had reached her route so quickly. The task force building stood behind an unmarked gate near a state logistics complex. Its plain concrete exterior gave no indication of the equipment or personnel inside. Maya passed through 2 security checks before being escorted to a conference room containing a long table, a wall-mounted monitor, and a camera positioned to record formal interviews. Rachel placed Maya's phone in a signal-blocking evidence pouch after confirming that the roadside assistance call had been preserved. "You are not under arrest," she said. "The phone is being isolated because we do not know which systems may have been compromised." "Does that include yours?" Rachel met the question without visible offense. "Until I know how Harlan obtained your location, it includes everything." Maya appreciated the honesty, even if it offered little comfort. She had been in the room for nearly 40 minutes when Samuel Price arrived. He entered wearing a dark overcoat over a gray suit, carrying a worn leather briefcase in one hand and a cardboard tray holding 2 coffees in the other. At 69, Samuel moved more slowly than he had when Maya first met him, but his attention remained exact. He greeted Rachel with a formal nod, placed the coffee on the table, and looked directly at Maya. "Are you injured?" "No." "Did anyone touch you?" "No." "Did you make a statement after the scene?" "Only what I said during the rescue call, and what Rachel asked about the route." Samuel took the chair beside her. "Good. Start from the moment the engine lost power. Facts only. Do not explain what you think Harlan intended until we separate what you observed from what you concluded." Maya described the failing engine, the parking brake, the warning triangle, the call to roadway rescue, and the patrol car's approach. She repeated Harlan's instruction to Eli and described the collision as precisely as she could. When she said Harlan had tried to destroy the evidence, Samuel raised one hand. "That is probably true," he said. "But tell me what you saw." He stared at the trunk before he struck the car. After the impact, he ignored the front of his cruiser and asked whether I had electronic equipment stored inside. Then he told me my father had hidden something for years. Samuel's expression changed slightly. "Exact words? Your father kept it hidden for a long time. That impact should have finished what he started." Rachel, who had been standing near the monitor, looked toward the sealed evidence bag containing Maya's bent ignition key. "That gives him knowledge," she said. "It gives us a statement that may prove knowledge if we can corroborate it," Samuel replied. "Do not improve the evidence before it is ready." Maya leaned back in the chair. He knew where to hit. Samuel studied her for a moment. "Then it is time Rachel understands what may be inside the car." Maya had hoped to delay that conversation until they knew who had leaked her route, but the sedan was already under government seal, and Harlan had revealed too much. She asked Rachel to clear the room. Rachel dismissed the 2 recording technicians, disabled the conference camera, and placed her own phone inside a shielding cabinet. Daniel Voss was not invited back. Only then did Maya explain what her father had built. Isaiah Williams had worked as an electromechanical technician before taking a commercial driving job that offered steadier hours. He distrusted remote storage long before most people understood how easily records could be altered. During the final years of his life, he had modified a narrow compartment behind the sedan's rear trunk panel and installed a sealed device that operated independently from the car's main electrical system. "It has no wireless connection," Maya said. "No Bluetooth, no cellular transmitter, and no network access. It uses a reserve battery, a mechanical counter, wheel position sensors, and a one-direction storage system. You cannot erase it remotely because there is nothing to connect to." Rachel pulled a legal pad toward her. "What does it contain?" "Potentially. The original versions of the 12th Precinct files." Samuel looked at Maya. "Potentially? I have not opened the device since the latest material was added." "Who added it?" "A former precinct records employee. He contacted me through an attorney 6 weeks ago. He believed city servers were being altered after internal complaints were filed." He refused to trust any system connected to the department or the city contractor. Rachel began writing. What kind of files? Original arrest reports, body camera exports, evidence access logs, payment records, internal messages, and documents showing who approved late changes. If the source told the truth, it may be the only complete copy that has not passed through a compromised network. Samuel rested both hands on the table. How did Harlan learn about it? I don't know. Only a small group knew the material had been transferred, and even fewer knew the storage was inside my father's car. Rachel looked toward the closed door. How many people knew your protection route tonight? 3 people approved it. The final change came through the task force scheduling system. Samuel glanced at Rachel. Which brings us back to your technical staff. Rachel did not defend them. It does. A secure call came through the wall console. Rachel answered, listened briefly, and activated the speaker. A technician's voice filled the room. Chief, we completed the external inspection. The trunk housing is heavily deformed, but the inner reinforcement panel held. We have not opened the compartment. Any electrical reading? Rachel asked. Low but present. There is a separate power source inside. Maya released a breath she had not realized she was holding. Rachel ended the call and turned to her. The device may still be active. Then open it before someone tries again. Samuel shook his head. Not yet. Maya stared at him. Harlan already knows it exists. He knows something exists. He does not know whether it survived, what it contains, or who has access to it. Those uncertainties are the only advantages we have. Rachel understood before Maya answered. We let him believe. The collision destroyed it. Maya stood and walked to the far end of the table. You want to conceal the one fact that could clear me. I want to prevent the person who leaked your location from learning that the evidence is still intact, Samuel said. If we announce its survival, the insider stops taking risks. Harlan changes his account. Everyone above him begins erasing whatever remains. I am not comfortable building a strategy around another false impression. Samuel's voice remained even. We are not changing a document, inventing an event, or accusing an innocent person. We are refusing to report the condition of evidence to the man who tried to destroy it, Rachel added. We can remove the real core under a restricted process and leave an inert module inside the damaged housing. Only 3 technicians will know, and none of them will come from the standard rotation. What about Voss? He will see the damaged shell, Rachel said. Nothing more. Maya returned to her chair. The plan was logical, but logic no longer carried the reassurance it had before the collision. A protected route had been exposed. A police lieutenant had found her on an unplanned road, and someone inside Rachel's operation had known enough to guide him. Samuel opened his briefcase and removed a folded page sealed in a clear sleeve. Maya recognized her father's handwriting immediately. Rachel read the sentence aloud. Anything connected can be erased. Anything touched can be replaced. Build one witness that needs neither permission nor a network. Isaiah had written it years before the current investigation, but the words described the danger with uncomfortable precision. Maya looked at the bent ignition key resting beside the evidence pouch. Harlan believed he had struck the weakest part of an old car. He did not know her father had designed the compartment for the day someone tried to destroy what it held. She faced Rachel. Remove the core without entering the operation in the normal schedule. Show Voss the damaged housing, and tell him the internal condition is uncertain. Rachel nodded. Samuel closed the briefcase. And Harlan? Maya thought about the report he would already be writing. Let him believe the impact worked. Across Atlanta, Brent Harlan sat at a precinct computer and began typing his account of an unattended vehicle rolling backward into a patrol cruiser. In the secure facility, 3 people prepared to protect the evidence his report was meant to bury. The first official version of the night would belong to Harlan. The truth would remain hidden inside the old car until they knew who else was trying to erase it. By 2:30 in the morning, Harlan had already completed the first draft of his report, although draft was not the word he used. To him, the account on the screen was the event itself, organized into official language before anyone else could challenge it. He wrote that Maya Williams's vehicle had been left unsecured on the shoulder, that it had rolled backward without warning, and that the patrol cruiser had been struck while approaching to assist. He added that Maya appeared agitated, attempted to interfere with the investigation, and repeatedly tried to influence Officer Turner's recollection. The arrival of the armored convoy became an unexplained intervention by an outside unit, while the contents of the sedan were described as possible unauthorized electronic material connected to a broader security concern. Nothing in the report mentioned the clear travel lane, the warning triangle, the active rescue call, or the moment Harlan switched off the cruiser camera. Eli stood beside the desk and read each paragraph in silence. The precinct had settled into its overnight rhythm around them. Telephones rang at distant stations, a printer fed out booking forms, and an exhausted desk officer stirred powdered creamer into coffee without looking up. The ordinary activity made the document on Harlan's screen seem more dangerous because no one nearby treated it as unusual. Harlan printed the report and placed it in front of Eli. "Read the supplemental page," he said. Eli remained standing. "I already told you the car wasn't moving. You told me what you think you saw. I saw the hazard lights. I saw the triangle. The lane was open." Harlan leaned back in his chair. "And you were sitting in a moving patrol vehicle at night while approaching a disabled car. Distance, angle, and lighting affect perception. That is why officers write reports after the scene has been secured." Eli looked down at the page. The language was careful. It did not say he had watched the sedan roll from beginning to end. It said he observed an unsecured civilian vehicle in close proximity to the cruiser at the time of impact. It said Maya challenged the official account before a full examination could be completed. It said the incident developed quickly and that visibility was limited. Every sentence had been written to leave room for retreat, while still supporting Harlan. "This makes it sound like the car hit us," Eli said. "That is what happened." "No, it isn't." Harlan's expression hardened, but his voice remained low. "You have been at this precinct for less than 3 months. You are still on probation. Your evaluations are not complete, and every supervisor who decides whether you stay will read what you submit tonight." Eli raised his eyes. "Are you threatening my job?" "I am explaining your position." "My position was the passenger seat." Harlan held his gaze for several seconds. "Then you should understand how little control you had over what happened." The implication was clear enough that Eli stopped speaking. If he contradicted Harlan, he would not simply challenge a lieutenant with 26 years in the department. He would challenge the records, the command structure, and the people who had already begun treating Harlan's version as settled fact. Harlan pushed a pen across the desk. "Sign the supplemental." Eli did not reach for it. "At least include the camera," he said. "You turned it off before the impact. The camera malfunctioned. You pressed the control. You saw the indicator go dark. You did not inspect the system, and you do not know why it stopped recording." "I heard what you said." Harlan leaned forward. "Be very careful about confusing a stressful memory with an exact quotation." The desk officer across the room glanced in their direction, then returned to his coffee. Eli understood the message. Harlan was not afraid of being overheard, because everyone nearby already knew when not to listen. At the secure operations building, Maya sat across from Samuel, while Rachel coordinated the restricted removal of the storage core. The conference room monitor showed a silent live feed from the vehicle bay, where 2 technicians worked behind a temporary privacy screen. Their names had been omitted from the standard electronic schedule, and every tool entering the bay had been recorded by hand. Maya had not slept. Samuel had persuaded her to eat half an egg sandwich and drink water, but the food sat heavily in her stomach. Her attention remained fixed on the sealed sedan. Rachel entered carrying a paper folder rather than a tablet. "The core has been removed," she said. "The housing sustained damage, but the internal seals are intact. We will not connect it to any networked reader." Maya released a quiet breath. "And the replacement?" "An inert module is inside the original shell." Voss was shown photographs of the damaged casing and told the internal condition could not be confirmed. "Did he ask to inspect it?" "Immediately." Samuel looked up from his legal pad. "That is useful." Rachel sat beside Maya. "It is suspicious, not conclusive. It tells us where his attention is," Samuel replied. Maya looked from one of them to the other. "How long before Harlan's report enters the system?" Rachel checked the wall clock. It may already be there. Samuel turned to Maya. This is the point where you will want to answer him publicly. I already do. You will want to release the rescue call, disclose the device, and explain why the convoy was there. Yes. And doing that tonight would allow Harlan to revise his account before anyone questions him under oath. Maya folded her arms. Meanwhile, his report becomes the first version everyone reads. It will. My name will be attached to an accusation I cannot answer. For a time. She looked at him sharply. That is easy to say when it is not your name. Samuel accepted the criticism without defending himself. You are right. It is not my name, my job, or my father's car. I am not asking you to pretend the damage is small. I am asking whether you want to stop the first headline or expose the entire operation. Maya turned toward the monitor. The technicians had covered the crushed trunk and completed the new seal. Rachel placed the paper folder on the table. If Harlan believes the device survived, he may stop communicating with whoever helped him. If he believes it was destroyed, they may begin dividing responsibility, changing records, and checking whether anything remains. Those actions could identify the network. Maya understood the logic. What she resisted was the cost. Silence would allow Harlan to define the event before she could defend herself, and experience had taught her how quickly an official accusation hardened into public belief. Samuel opened his briefcase and removed Isaiah's repair note again. Your father built that device because he did not trust a single system to preserve the truth, he said. He created an independent witness. Now we have to give that witness enough time to matter. Maya read the familiar handwriting. Justice is not fair at the beginning, Samuel continued. Sometimes the first honest act is refusing to interrupt a lie before it has signed its own name. She remained silent for a long moment. Then she pulled a legal pad toward her. What do you need? Your complete timeline, Samuel said. Every time, location, word, and movement you can remember. No speculation, no improvement. If you are uncertain, write that you are uncertain. Maya began with the moment the engine lost power. She recorded the time she activated the hazard lights, the placement of the warning triangle, the rescue operator's questions, and Harlan's approach. She wrote down his instruction to Eli, his question about electronic equipment, and his reference to her father. Rachel added preservation requests for the roadside call, the cruiser systems, radio traffic, route access logs, vehicle seal records, and every version of Harlan's report. Across the city, Eli finally picked up the pen. He signed the supplemental because fear had made the consequences of refusal feel immediate, while the consequences of dishonesty still seemed distant. Harlan took the page before the ink had fully dried. You made the right decision, he said. Eli looked at his own name beneath words he knew were false. No, he replied quietly. I made the decision you wanted. Harlan filed the report anyway. By sunrise, the city system contained a signed police account accusing Maya's motionless car of causing the collision. Her own statement remained sealed inside Samuel's briefcase, supported by evidence Harlan believed he had destroyed. The lie had entered the public record first, but it had also acquired 2 signatures, a disabled camera, and a young officer who would have to decide how long fear could keep him silent. By 8 o'clock Friday morning, Maya's name had moved beyond the police system and into every local newsroom in Atlanta. The first television alert appeared while she was still at Samuel's office, seated beneath a framed photograph of the old county courthouse, with a paper cup of untouched coffee cooling beside her. State technology employee investigated after armored convoy confrontation, the anchor announced. The screen showed Maya's work identification photograph next to an image of the 11 black SUVs surrounding the industrial road. The damaged sedan appeared only briefly, and the footage was framed so tightly that viewers could not see the reflective triangle or the clear lane beside the car. Harlan's cruiser occupied the center of the image, which made the event look less like an intentional collision and more like a police vehicle caught in an unusual security operation. The anchor continued with the limited facts released by the 12th Precinct. Maya Williams, 28, was identified as a state employee working in technical evidence analysis. Her privately owned vehicle had reportedly moved into a patrol car during an encounter involving unregistered electronic storage equipment. N. An unnamed police source claimed that Maya had resisted routine questioning and that an outside armored unit had interfered before local officers could complete their inspection. Maya watched without speaking until the report described her as a possible participant in an unauthorized extraction of police data. "They are presenting the allegation as established fact," she said. Samuel sat behind his desk, reading a printed copy of the initial news release. "They are placing the accusation first and the uncertainty afterward. Most people will remember the first sentence." Rachel stood near the window with her arms folded. She had changed clothes but had clearly not slept. "The task force did not release your name. Harlan did," Maya said. "Or someone working with him." The broadcast shifted to a live press conference outside the 12th precinct. A police union representative stood at a row of microphones, while Harlan remained several feet behind him in uniform. Eli was not visible. "The public deserves answers," the representative said. "Last night, a veteran Atlanta police lieutenant encountered a vehicle containing potentially sensitive electronic material. Before local officers could secure the scene, a heavily armored outside unit arrived without public explanation. No government employee should receive special treatment, and no agency should be allowed to intimidate local law enforcement." A reporter asked whether Maya was being accused of stealing police records. "We are saying the investigation must follow the evidence," the representative replied, having already ensured the public would believe that was precisely the accusation. Another reporter asked why the patrol car camera had not recorded the collision. "We understand there may have been an equipment malfunction. Those matters are routinely reviewed. What about the roadside assistance recording? We have not verified any recording supplied by a private company." Maya looked at Rachel. "They know about the call. It was mentioned at the scene in front of several people," Rachel replied. "That does not identify the leak." Harlan stepped to the microphones when a reporter called his name. "I approached what appeared to be an unsecured vehicle," he said. "My concern was public safety." The owner immediately became confrontational and invoked connections to outside agencies. "I will not comment on classified or sensitive equipment, but I stand by my report." His delivery was controlled and unhurried. He did not sound defensive because he had spent his career learning that calm authority was often mistaken for credibility. Maya reached for the remote and turned off the television. Samuel placed the news release on his desk. "Do not call the station. Do not contact the union. Do not answer reporters. They are accusing me of stealing data. They are suggesting it without using language that requires proof. And silence allows them to continue. For now, silence prevents them from learning which evidence survived." Maya stood and walked toward the window. Below, downtown traffic moved through the morning as though her life had not changed during the night. Office workers carried coffee into buildings, delivery trucks stopped at curbs, and a city bus released passengers near the corner. The ordinary movement made her confinement inside Samuel's office feel more pronounced. Her phone, still held by the task force, was not available, so the office landline began ringing instead. Samuel's assistant had not yet arrived, and the calls went to voicemail one after another. Reporters identified themselves. Former colleagues asked Maya to call privately. One man left a message accusing her of trying to destroy the police department. The next call came through Samuel's personal line. He checked the number before answering. "Price." Marcus Bell's voice was audible from across the desk. "Is Maya with you?" "Yes. I need to speak with both of you." Samuel activated the speaker. "Go ahead." Marcus paused before beginning. At 58, he had spent most of his career choosing language carefully enough to survive political disagreements, without appearing evasive. That skill now made each sentence sound more formal than Maya could tolerate. "The Attorney General's office is receiving inquiries from the governor's staff, the mayor's office, and several legislative committees," Marcus said. "Until the facts are clarified, Maya will be placed on paid administrative leave." Maya turned from the window. "Effective when?" "Immediately." "My access?" "Suspended during the review. That includes the 12th precinct files." "Yes. Harlan struck my car, wrote a false report, and removed me from the investigation before breakfast. This is not a finding against you. It does not need to be. It produces the result he wanted." Marcus exhaled. "Maya, I understand how this looks." "No, you understand how it looks from your office." I understand what it does. Samuel intervened before the conversation hardened further. Who requested the leave? It is an internal decision. That was not the question. There has been pressure from several directions. Document every request, Samuel said. Preserve all communications, including calls that did not produce a written order. Lock the 12th Precinct review files and require individual authentication for access. Marcus hesitated. Those records belong to the state, and they are now potential evidence of retaliation. Treat them accordingly. I will issue the preservation instruction. Maya looked toward the dark television screen. Marcus, did you know Harlan had been told I was reviewing his reports? I did not authorize anyone to tell him. That is not what I asked. Another pause followed. I cannot answer that with certainty, Marcus said. The admission carried more weight than a denial would have. When the call ended, Samuel wrote down the time and summarized each statement Marcus had made. Maya remained standing. Paid leave, she said. They will use that phrase, as though money is the only thing a person loses when they are removed from work. Samuel capped his pen. People your age are often told that reputation can be rebuilt. Those of us who have lived longer know how much of a life is spent building it the first time. Before Maya could answer, someone knocked at the office door. Rachel moved toward it, checked the hallway camera, and then opened it. Mrs. Evelyn Carter, Maya's retired neighbor from Decatur, stood outside holding a covered casserole dish. She was in her late 60s and wore a raincoat over her church clothes. I saw the news, she said. I did not come to ask questions. Maya felt her composure weaken for the first time that morning. Mrs. Carter, you did not need to come downtown. I know. That is why it counts. She handed Maya the dish and a folded note. Your father helped me start my car during that ice storm in 2009. He stayed outside until the engine held, even though he had worked all night. I have not forgotten what kind of family you are. Maya looked down at the handwriting on the note because meeting the older woman's eyes had become difficult. Thank you. Mrs. Carter gave Samuel a courteous nod. Mr. Price. Mrs. Carter, you take care of her. I intend to. After she left, Maya placed the casserole on a side table. The gesture did not change the headline, restore her access, or weaken Harlan's report. But it reminded her that official records were not the only places where a person's character was preserved. The office printer activated without warning. A secure message from Marcus's office had arrived. Samuel removed the page and read it once, before handing it to Maya. Her state credentials were suspended. Her government email had been locked. All work-related accounts were frozen, pending review, and a separate petition had been filed seeking temporary restrictions on her financial and digital assets because of the alleged security risk posed by the device in her car. Maya read the final paragraph twice. Harlan had started with a collision and a false traffic report. By the end of the morning, he had turned her profession, her father's car, and the task force assigned to protect her into evidence that she was dangerous. Samuel folded the notice and placed it in a new file. What happens now? Maya asked. Now. They try to make the accusation large enough that no one remembers the car was standing still. Outside the window, the first news van pulled to the curb beneath Samuel's office. By noon, the cameras would be waiting at every exit, and the city would know Maya's face long before it learned what Harlan had done. By early afternoon, the legal notice had expanded from suspended work access into a broader preservation order that reached far beyond Maya's government accounts. The language was restrained, but its effect was immediate. Any device, record, or object connected to the hidden storage system in her father's sedan could now be seized for examination. Samuel read the order twice before setting it on his desk. They are using a security review to collect everything associated with your father, he said. Maya stood beside the conference table, still holding the folded note Mrs. Carter had given her. They do not even know what most of those things are. They do not need to know yet. The order is broad enough to let them decide later. Rachel had been speaking quietly into a secure phone near the window. When she ended the call, she turned toward them. A team is already at your apartment. Maya looked at her. Whose team? State investigators working under the temporary order. 2 of my people are present to document the seizure, but I do not control the warrant. Samuel reached for his coat. Then we go now. The drive to Decatur took longer than usual because reporters had begun following vehicles leaving Samuel's building. Rachel used an underground exit and changed cars twice before they reached Maya's neighborhood. By the time they arrived, 2 unmarked government sedans were parked outside her apartment building, and several neighbors stood at a distance, watching from the sidewalk. Mrs. Carter was among them. She approached Maya carefully. "They said they have papers." "They do," Maya replied. "I told them not to damage anything." "Thank you." Inside the apartment, the search proceeded with methodical efficiency. Investigators photographed each room before opening drawers or cabinets. They were polite, but politeness did not make the process less invasive. The first item removed was Isaiah's old toolbox. Maya watched an investigator lift it from the hall closet and place it on the dining table. The metal case was scratched from years of use, and one corner had been repaired with a strip of aluminum Isaiah had cut by hand. "What is inside?" the investigator asked. "Basic automotive and electrical tools." "Any storage media?" "Not that I know of." The man opened the box anyway. Wrenches, wire cutters, a voltage meter, and small labeled envelopes were arranged inside. The familiar smell of machine oil rose from the case before the investigators sealed it in a large evidence bag. Maya turned away for a moment. Samuel remained beside her. "Do you want to sit down?" "No." The next items came from a bookshelf in the living room. Isaiah's repair notebooks, a box of old drives, a handheld radio, and several envelopes containing vehicle diagrams. Each object received a number and a label. One technician held up a worn notebook. "This contains circuit drawings and handwritten access codes." "They are repair notes," Maya said. The technician wrote something on the inventory sheet. "Possible technical instructions." Samuel stepped closer. "Describe it accurately." "It is a mechanic's repair log, belonging to the late Isaiah Williams." The technician looked at him. "We have to classify the contents." "You may classify them after examination. The inventory should state what the object is, not what someone hopes it might prove." The supervising investigator, an older woman with silver hair pulled back neatly, glanced over the page and nodded. "Revise the description." The technician crossed out the phrase and wrote again. Maya gave Samuel a quiet look of gratitude. The correction was small, but she understood why he insisted on it. Once vague suspicion entered an official inventory, it could be repeated until it appeared factual. In the bedroom closet, investigators found a cardboard box containing Isaiah's letters, spare car keys, and an old digital recorder. Maya asked whether personal correspondence was necessary. The supervisor answered without defensiveness. "The order includes materials that may explain the design or intended use of the device. My father died before this investigation began." "I understand." "Then write that down too." The woman paused, then added a note to the inventory. No one argued after that. The search lasted nearly 3 hours. By the end, Maya's apartment looked unchanged at first glance. Yet every object that connected her to her father had been removed. The shelves were still there. The table remained in place, and the framed photographs had not moved. But the practical evidence of Isaiah's life was gone. Rachel received a secure message while the final box was being sealed. "The core examination is complete," she said quietly. Maya looked toward the investigators before answering. "Here?" Rachel shook her head. "Not in front of them." They waited until the seizure team left and the apartment door closed. Mrs. Carter remained outside with the other neighbors, ensuring reporters did not approach the entrance. Rachel placed a paper folder on the dining table. "The device survived the collision," she said. "The shock housing absorbed most of the impact, and the reserve system continued recording." Samuel opened the folder, but did not touch the photographs inside. "What did it capture?" Rachel pointed to the first page. "The engine lost primary power at 9:42 p.m. The parking brake engaged 13 seconds later. Both rear wheel locks remained fixed until the collision." Maya leaned over the document. "The car never rolled?" "Not even an inch before impact. The movement afterward was consistent with an external force from the rear." Samuel turned to the next page. "And this entry? The brake tension changed later, after the sedan entered impound custody. Someone lowered the lever by 1 position." Maya read the recorded time. "Harlan had access then. He had requested access, Rachel replied. We are still confirming whether he entered the vehicle personally. The device had also recorded the angle and force of the collision, which showed that the patrol car had approached from directly behind rather than being struck by a backward-moving sedan. The data did not identify the driver, but it destroyed the mechanical explanation in Harlan's report. For the first time since the crash, Maya felt the case move in her direction. Then we release this. Samuel closed the folder. No. She looked at him sharply. This proves the brake worked. It proves the official report is false, which is precisely why we do not reveal it before Harlan commits himself further. They just removed my father's entire life from this apartment. I know. My accounts are frozen. My work is gone. They are calling me a security threat, and we have evidence that could stop it. Samuel's expression remained steady, but his voice softened. It could stop part of it. It could also warn everyone above Harlan that the device survived, Rachel added. Voss has been shown the damaged shell. He believes the core may be unreadable. If he learns otherwise, he will stop using compromised channels and begin destroying anything we have not found. Maya walked toward the empty bookshelf. One pale rectangle marked the place where Isaiah's notebooks had stood for years. He built that device so the truth would not be trapped inside someone else's system, she said. Samuel came to stand beside her. And now the truth needs protection from the instinct to use it too soon. Rachel opened a second folder. There is another issue. Voss requested direct access to the extracted core less than 20 minutes after the housing was removed. On what basis? He claimed he needed to evaluate possible malware. The device has no network interface. He knows that. Maya turned from the shelf. So, the request was not technical. No, Rachel said. It was about finding out whether the core survived. The suspicions surrounding Voss had become more specific, but they still lacked proof that he had leaked Maya's route. Samuel instructed Rachel to preserve the request through an offline paper record and deny access without alerting him to the reason. Maya finally sat down. On the kitchen counter, the casserole from Mrs. Carter remained untouched. Samuel opened a cabinet, found 3 plates, and served small portions without asking whether anyone was hungry. You should eat, he said. Maya looked at the empty spaces around the apartment. My bank card does not work. My government access is gone, and every object my father left has a number on it. Samuel placed a plate in front of her. Then, today, you eat food brought by a neighbor who remembers who he was. Maya took the fork. The meal did not solve anything, but accepting it felt less like dependence than belonging. Across the city, Harlan received confirmation that Isaiah Williams's belongings had been seized under the security order. He closed his office door before making the call. They have the apartment contents, he said. A distorted voice answered through the encrypted line. What about the core? Damaged, according to Voss. According to Voss is not the same as destroyed. Harlan looked at the collision photographs on his desk. If it survived, we take away everything needed to read it. When the call ended, he opened Maya's case file and added another note describing her father's equipment as part of a concealed technological operation. In Decatur, Maya finished the first few bites of casserole, while Rachel reviewed the mechanical records again. The official order had removed the visible pieces of Isaiah's work, but the machine, hidden in his old car, had preserved the one fact Harlan needed erased. The parking brake had worked. The sedan had not moved. Someone had changed it afterward. Harlan waited until the afternoon shift had settled, before calling Eli into the smaller briefing room behind the watch commander's office. The room had no windows, and the only decoration was a framed department commendation that listed Harlan among the officers honored for distinguished service more than a decade earlier. Eli noticed it as soon as he entered, not because he admired it, but because Harlan had chosen the room deliberately. Close the door, Harlan said. Eli obeyed and remained standing. On the table lay a thin folder, a patrol car key log, 2 printed screenshots, and a flash drive sealed inside an evidence sleeve. Harlan motioned toward the chair across from him. You need to understand where this investigation is going. I understand what happened. Harlan gave him a patient look. That is exactly the problem. You are still thinking this is about what happened on the road. Eli sat but kept his hands away from the folder. What else would it be about? Records, responsibility, and whether this precinct survives an attack from people who have already decided we are guilty. Maya Williams did not attack the precinct. She has an armored task force, hidden equipment, and access to restricted files. Do not confuse a calm voice with an innocent purpose. Eli looked at the documents on the table. Why am I here? Harlan opened the folder and turned the first page toward him. It was a vehicle assignment record showing that Cruiser 1217 had been issued under Eli Turner's identification number. That is wrong, Eli said. You signed out the keys. The SIS says you did. You were standing beside me. Memory again. Harlan showed him a second page. The cruiser's computer login had been entered under Eli's credentials less than 20 minutes before the collision. Another record placed Harlan in the passenger position as field supervisor. Eli read the entries twice. I never logged into the driver terminal. Your credentials did. You used my access. Harlan did not answer. Instead, he opened one of the screenshots. It appeared to show Eli leaving the precinct garage with the cruiser keys in his hand. The image had been cropped tightly enough to remove Harlan, who had actually been walking beside him. This camera angle proves nothing. It proves what a reviewer expects it to prove. Eli pushed the photograph back across the table. You are building a case against me. I am giving you a chance to avoid becoming the case. For several seconds, neither man spoke. The ventilation system hummed above them, and muffled voices passed through the hallway outside. Harlan's posture remained relaxed because he knew the documents had already changed the balance between them. Eli looked at the flash drive. What is on that? A backup of the assignment records and vehicle access logs. Altered records. Official records. You were driving. Harlan leaned forward. Then ask yourself what a prosecutor will see. A probationary officer signs out a cruiser, logs into the driver terminal, disables the camera, and strikes a protected state employee's vehicle. His supervisor is present, but the younger officer panics and begins changing his story after the investigation attracts attention. That is not what happened. It is what can be documented. Eli's anger rose, but he kept his voice controlled. You told me to sign a false report, and now you are preparing to say I caused the collision. I told you to support the facts, as the department understands them. Whether you remain protected by that department depends on how consistent you are. The word protected carried no reassurance. Harlan had used it to describe obedience, not safety. Eli looked again at the fabricated key log. If he accused Harlan immediately, he would have his own memory against a signed report, altered system records, and a command structure that had already accepted Harlan's version. If he remained silent, those same records could eventually make him responsible for the entire operation. Harlan watched him calculate. You are not the first young officer to discover that a career depends on more than being technically correct, he said. The people outside this building will not save you. Williams will protect her own name. Price will protect his client. Kim will protect her task force. When blame has to land somewhere, they will choose the man with the least seniority. And you would let them. I am trying to prevent that. No. You are making sure you have somewhere to put it. Harlan's expression lost its practiced patience. Be careful. Eli lowered his eyes, allowing the silence to suggest surrender, while his thoughts moved in another direction. Direct resistance had failed. Every objection he raised only taught Harlan which details needed stronger fabrication. If the records could be changed, Eli needed something outside the systems Harlan controlled. When he finally looked up, he allowed his shoulders to relax. What do you want me to do? Harlan studied him, uncertain whether the change was genuine. Stay consistent. Support the report. Stop talking as though the department is your enemy. And if they ask who was driving, they will not ask if the case holds. That is not an answer. It is the only answer you need. Eli nodded slowly. All right. Harlan waited. I understand. Eli continued. I was looking at this the wrong way. I thought telling the truth would protect me. But nobody outside this room is interested in protecting a probationary officer. The statement appealed directly to Harlan's view of the world. His posture eased. Now you are thinking like someone who may last in this job. He pushed a new supplemental report across the table. It stated that Eli could not independently determine whether the sedan had moved before impact because his attention had been divided by roadway conditions. It also affirmed that Harlan had acted within his supervisory authority. "Sign it before the end of shift," Harlan said. Eli picked up the report. "I will." He left the briefing room with the folder pressed under one arm and continued walking until he reached the employee parking lot. Once inside his own car, he locked the doors and sat without starting the engine. His first impulse was to call Samuel Price, but a direct call would create a record, and Eli no longer trusted any device connected to the department's network. He also knew that a frightened accusation would not outweigh the documents Harlan had prepared. He needed Harlan's own voice explaining what the records were designed to conceal. An hour later, Eli entered a small office supply and electronics store several miles from the precinct. He paid cash for a metal recording pen, advertised for business meetings and university lectures. The device operated on an internal battery, stored sound locally, and had no wireless connection. In the parking lot, he read the instructions twice before testing it. The audio was clear enough to capture ordinary conversation from across a desk. That evening, Eli returned to the precinct with the pen clipped inside his uniform pocket. He found Harlan reviewing photographs of Maya's damaged trunk. "I signed the supplemental," Eli said. Harlan looked up. "Good." Eli placed the document on the desk, using the same basic signature as before but changing the pressure and final stroke in a way that could later distinguish it from his normal execution. Harlan glanced at the page without noticing. "You made the right decision." "I made the decision that keeps me useful." Harlan smiled slightly. "That is usually the same thing." The pen recorded every word. Eli remained beside the desk and looked at the photographs as though he had accepted Harlan's version completely. "If the device survived," he asked, "what happens to us?" Harlan's eyes stayed on the crushed trunk. "That depends on whether the people handling the evidence understand who they work for." Eli did not react. Inside his pocket, the small recorder continued running, preserving a conversation that existed nowhere in the precinct's official system. Rachel called Maya and Samuel back to the secure operations building the following morning after an overnight audit produced evidence that someone had used her credentials to access Maya's route. The entry appeared legitimate at first glance, complete with Rachel's authentication key and the correct approval code. But the request had been made while she was supervising another operation across the city. Daniel Voss was already in the conference room when they arrived. He stood beside the wall monitor with a technical report open on the screen and greeted Maya with the same restrained politeness he had shown at the roadside. "We found the route inquiry," he said. "It originated from Chief Kim's workstation." Rachel remained near the door. "My workstation was locked, and I was not in the building." Voss changed the display to show an access timeline. "The system recorded your credential, your terminal, and your authentication token." Samuel set his briefcase on the table. "Does that prove she initiated the request?" "It proves the system recognized her." "That was not my question." Voss looked at him. "In most internal reviews, those two things are treated as equivalent." Samuel removed his coat and folded it over the back of a chair. "That answer explains why altered records survive for so long." Maya studied the access log. The technical details were dense, but the structure was familiar. A name, a credential, and a timestamp had been arranged to produce a conclusion before anyone examined how the information might have been created. Rachel pointed toward one line. "The route was opened at 8:51 p.m. I was speaking to the deputy director on a recorded line at that time. Someone could have used your terminal while you were away," Voss said. "My office requires a physical badge entry. The badge log shows you entered at 8:47. Rachel's expression hardened. "I did not." Voss shifted to another screen. "Then your badge and authentication token were both duplicated, which would represent a serious breach. You told us at the roadside that there was no sign of unauthorized access," Maya said. "The main logs were clean then. The deeper review found this. You completed enough of a review to declare the system secure, but not enough to notice someone had copied the chief's identity." Voss answered without losing his composure. "Cybersecurity analysis develops as more information becomes available." Samuel sat down. "Convenient information often develops in the direction preferred by the person presenting it. Rachel closed the report and removed the display from the screen. Daniel, I want the raw device images, network switch logs, building access records, and authentication history transferred to offline storage. The audit is not complete. That is why I want the source material. Voss hesitated. Moving incomplete data outside the system could damage chain of custody. Then document the transfer and follow the order. He gave a brief nod and left the room, but the controlled irritation in his face remained visible until the door closed. Maya turned to Rachel. Can those logs be trusted? I do not know. Can your credentials be copied? With sufficient internal access. Who has that access? Rachel looked toward the closed door. Daniel is one of 3 people. The answer did not settle anything. Voss could have fabricated the records, but Rachel could also be using him as a convenient suspect after her own credentials appeared in the system. Maya had entered the task force believing that technical records were more reliable than human recollection. Now every screen seemed capable of presenting a different truth depending on who controlled the access. Samuel noticed her hesitation. You do not have to decide whom you trust today, he said. You have to decide which evidence can survive without trust. Rachel opened a locked cabinet and removed a sealed metal case. Then, we should examine the device. The case contained the core removed from Isaiah's sedan. To prevent contamination, the reading would take place in an isolated laboratory with no network connection. Rachel had arranged for a specialized reader to be assembled from the technical diagrams in Isaiah's notebook, using duplicate parts rather than the original components seized from Maya's apartment. Only Rachel, Maya, Samuel, and an independent forensic engineer entered the room. Voss was told the damaged core remained unreadable. The first files appeared slowly. Many were ordinary maintenance records that Isaiah had stored years earlier, but later directories contained material added by the former precinct employee. Maya read the file names as they appeared on the monitor. Original arrest reports, evidence access logs, body camera exports, vehicle impound records, internal emails, payment summaries. Samuel stood behind her, saying nothing until the first comparison was opened. The original report described a delivery van stalled beside a loading zone. A later version stated that the van had moved backward toward an officer, creating an immediate hazard. The driver was Leonard Brooks. Maya recognized the name from the reduced plea file she had reviewed weeks earlier. Rachel opened the access history. Harlan had not written the original report, but he had approved the supplemental version after visiting the impound facility. A technology contractor had modified the file metadata several hours later. Open the next case, Maya said. A woman named Teresa Hall had reported that her car lost electrical power in a parking lot. The original incident notes confirmed the vehicle was stationary. The final report stated that it rolled into a patrol unit after she failed to secure it. The next file involved Calvin Moore, whose disabled vehicle had been described as operational and threatening, only after the first body camera file disappeared. Each case followed a similar progression. A stalled vehicle became a moving danger. A harmless driver became uncooperative. Evidence changed after impound. A supplemental report repaired the weaknesses in the initial accusation. Harlan's name appeared repeatedly, but not alone. The files also identified a city official who approved emergency data restrictions, a union strategist who coordinated public responses, an evidence storage contractor who permitted undocumented access, and a technology company that received payments after altering system records. Maya sat back from the monitor. This is not a group protecting Harlan. Samuel looked at the names. No. Harlan is protecting the group. Rachel opened a payment spreadsheet. Transfers from the contractor led to consulting accounts associated with several officials. One payment had been routed through a company linked to Daniel Voss. The connection was indirect, but it was enough to justify a deeper examination. Rachel's face changed as she read the account information. He helped design the authentication system, which means he knows how to make a false entry look legitimate, Maya said. Samuel remained cautious. It means he had access and a possible financial connection. We still need evidence that ties him to your route. Rachel copied the relevant files onto 2 separately sealed drives, then shut down the isolated reader. Maya returned to Leonard Brooks's case. The plea agreement showed that he had accepted a misdemeanor charge after being warned that a felony conviction could end his commercial driving career. The compromise had not saved him. His employer dismissed him after the plea. "We need to speak with him," she said. Samuel found Leonard's current address through an old civil file. He lived in a modest ranch house south of Atlanta and initially refused to let them inside. "I told the truth when it still cost me everything," Leonard said through the partly open door. He was 62, with silver at his temples and the guarded manner of someone who had learned not to expect institutions to correct themselves. Nobody wanted it then. Maya did not mention the task force or promise that his record would be cleared. "We found the original report," she said. "The version written before it was changed." Leonard's hand remained on the door. "People have said they found things before. This copy was stored outside the city system. Why should I trust another government employee?" "You should not," Maya replied. "Not yet. I am asking only whether you will let Mr. Price send you a copy through an attorney of your choosing." Leonard looked at Samuel, then back at Maya. "Who changed it? We are still proving that. And why are you involved?" "Because the same officer tried to use the same method against me." Leonard opened the door a few inches farther, but he did not invite them inside. "Send the copy," he said. "Then I will decide whether I have anything left to say." On the drive back, Maya understood that clearing her name would no longer be enough. The device in her father's car contained years of accusations that had survived only because the people named in them lacked money, influence, or a witness strong enough to challenge the official record. At the task force building, Voss entered the hearing schedule into the protected system. Before closing the file, he copied the date into an encrypted message and sent it to Harlan. "If the metadata disappears before admission," he wrote, "the convoy footage becomes noise." The message left no visible trace in the ordinary audit log. Inside the isolated laboratory, however, Isaiah's device had already revealed the truth Harlan feared most. The collision on the industrial road was not an isolated act, and Maya was no longer fighting only for herself. By the beginning of the following week, Harlan had shifted the public argument away from the collision almost entirely. The stalled sedan, the disabled dash camera, and the roadside call were mentioned only when reporters insisted on returning to them. Every official statement from the 12th Precinct now centered on the hidden device, the armored convoy, and the possibility that Maya had participated in an unauthorized operation against local law enforcement. The new strategy became clear when Harlan appeared at a formal press conference inside the police union headquarters. The room had been arranged to project stability. City flags stood behind the podium. Uniformed officers filled the first row, and a large screen displayed a photograph of the metal housing recovered from Maya's car. The inert shell had been presented as though it were the core of a sophisticated surveillance system. Maya watched the broadcast from Samuel's office, with Rachel standing beside her. Samuel remained at his desk, reading a court filing while listening to every word. Harlan approached the microphones in full uniform. "This matter is no longer limited to a traffic incident," he said. "Investigators have identified a concealed electronic device inside a privately owned vehicle operated by a state employee with access to sensitive police records. We are examining whether that equipment was used to collect, transport, or manipulate protected information without lawful authorization." A reporter raised her hand. "Are you saying Maya Williams committed cyber terrorism?" Harlan allowed a brief pause before answering. "I am saying that any unauthorized effort to compromise public safety systems must be treated seriously, regardless of the position held by the person involved." He had not used the word, but within minutes, television banners and online headlines began repeating variations of the same phrase. Possible technology, terrorism investigation. Maya felt her anger rise, although her voice remained steady. "He is calling evidence preservation an attack on public safety." Rachel looked at the screen. "He is using language broad enough to frighten people who do not understand the technology. He understands it well enough to know the device has no transmitter. He also knows the public has not been told that." Samuel finished reading the filing and placed it on the desk. "Fear does not require technical accuracy. It requires repetition and an official title." The press conference continued, Harlan claimed the 11 armored vehicles had arrived through an undisclosed command structure that appeared to place Maya beyond ordinary law enforcement. He questioned whether their cameras had been used to surveil local officers. He suggested that confidential police material might have been removed from approved systems and stored inside Isaiah's sedan. When asked why his cruiser had struck the vehicle, he returned briefly to the original report. The civilian car was not properly secured. That issue is being reviewed separately. Then he moved immediately back to the hidden device. Maya turned off the television before the questions ended. Her temporary financial restrictions had already made daily life difficult, but the new security designation widened the damage. That afternoon, the bank informed Samuel that her personal accounts would remain frozen pending a review of whether they had been used to support unauthorized data acquisition. Her professional association suspended her from an evidence standards committee. Her apartment manager received calls asking whether technical equipment remained inside the building. A local radio host referred to her as the woman with a secret armored convoy. Another commentator asked why an honest analyst would hide evidence in an old car. No one asked why a police lieutenant had aimed his cruiser directly at the trunk. Maya sat at the conference table while Samuel organized the notices into separate files. "They are making the device more important than the reason it had to exist," she said. "That is the purpose," Samuel replied. "If the public becomes frightened of the container, it stops asking what was inside. I can end part of this today. Release the roadside call. Let people hear that the car was disabled before Harlan arrived." Rachel shook her head. "The call proves the sequence, but releasing it tells Voss and Harlan exactly what the company preserved. We still do not know how many records they can reach. They already know the operator heard the collision. They do not know whether the original file is secure, whether we obtained an offline copy, or whether it contains enough background sound to support timing analysis." Maya stood and moved toward the window. A television van had returned to the curb below Samuel's building, while two reporters waited across the street with cameras pointed toward the entrance. "I am being asked to trust silence, while everyone else uses a microphone." Samuel closed the file in front of him. "No, you are being asked to choose the courtroom over the afternoon news. The courtroom will not restore what they are taking now. No, it will not." His agreement stopped her more effectively than reassurance would have. Samuel rose and put on his overcoat. "Come with me." "Where?" "Somewhere the coffee is older than the reporters." He drove Maya to a diner on the edge of downtown that had been serving courthouse employees, truck drivers, and city workers for more than 40 years. The booths were worn. The menu had been laminated so often that the corners had turned cloudy, and no television hung above the counter. Samuel ordered meatloaf, black coffee, and a slice of pecan pie. Maya asked only for coffee until the waitress, a woman near Samuel's age, looked at her and said, "Honey, coffee is not lunch." Maya ordered soup and half a sandwich. Samuel waited until the waitress left before speaking. "You have spent most of your adult life proving you can manage without assistance." "I manage because I have to. That is not always the same thing. My accounts are frozen. My apartment is being watched. Strangers are deciding that my father built some kind of weapon. And now my neighbors are bringing me food because I cannot use my own money. I do not feel independent." Samuel stirred nothing into his coffee. "Your father believed independence meant having the skill to solve every problem placed in front of him. It took him years to learn that community is not a failure of self-reliance." Maya looked down at the table. "They are taking the meaning of my name. They are trying to borrow it long enough to attach fear to it. That is different from owning it. It does not feel different. No, it rarely does while it is happening." The waitress returned with their food and placed the soup in front of Maya. "My sister saw you on the news," she said quietly. Maya prepared herself for another accusation. Instead, the woman continued. "She worked records for the city 28 years. She said people should pay attention whenever an office suddenly becomes more concerned about where information was stored than whether it was true." Samuel gave the waitress a respectful nod. "Your sister sounds sensible." She had practice. After the woman left, Maya took a spoonful of soup. The warmth settled her enough to think beyond the next headline. Samuel leaned forward. "You are not remaining silent because Harlan deserves the first word. You are remaining silent because he still believes he controls what comes after it. Maya considered the distinction. If we release the call, he adjusts. Yes. If we reveal the mechanical data, Voss changes methods. Yes. If we explain the device, the network destroys whatever the device points toward. Samuel nodded. And every person whose name appears in those files loses the chance to have the original record tested. Maya thought of Leonard Brooks standing behind his partly open door, unwilling to trust another official promise. She understood that her impatience could protect her reputation while damaging cases belonging to people who had waited much longer. "I will not release the call," she said. Samuel drank his coffee. "That is not surrender." "I know." When they returned to the office, Rachel was waiting with an update. Harlan had scheduled another media appearance, and Eli Turner would stand beside him. The broadcast began that evening. Eli wore his uniform and kept his hands clasped in front of him, while Harlan described the 12th precinct as the target of a coordinated campaign. When a reporter asked whether Maya's vehicle had been stationary, Eli answered carefully. "It presented an unusual and potentially unsafe scene, and I signed the reports submitted through my chain of command." He did not say the car moved. He did not say Harlan told the truth. Maya heard only that he had chosen to stand beside the man who struck her car and wrote the lie. "He had another chance," she said. Samuel watched Eli's face rather than listening to Harlan. "Perhaps. There is no perhaps. He signed twice, and now he is helping them on television." "Fear can make a person obedient," Samuel said. "Sometimes it can also make obedience useful." Maya turned toward him. "You think he is pretending?" "I think his language is narrower than Harlan's. I do not yet know why." On the screen, Harlan placed a hand on Eli's shoulder and praised his professionalism. Eli did not look at him. Inside the pocket of his uniform, the metal recording pen continued capturing every word spoken after the cameras were turned off. Once the television cameras were switched off, the police union conference room emptied quickly. Reporters carried their equipment into the hallway. Officers returned to their assignments, and the communications staff began gathering printed statements from the podium. Harlan remained near the front of the room, accepting congratulations from two union officials who praised the controlled way he had handled the questions. Eli waited beside the wall, careful not to appear impatient. The metal pen clipped inside his uniform pocket continued recording. When the last reporter left, Harlan approached him. "You did well," he said. "You answered what was asked and did not volunteer anything unnecessary. I followed the report. That is what disciplined officers do." Eli looked toward the closed doors. "Williams will say, I avoided the question. Let her. People who are defending themselves always complain about wording." The public heard a uniformed officer confirm the scene was dangerous. "I said it was unusual." Harlan smiled. "Most people will not remember the difference." They left through a private corridor and entered a small office used by the union's legal staff. A tray of sandwiches and bottled water had been left on the table, but neither man touched them. Harlan loosened his collar and placed a folder in front of Eli. "You need to be ready for the hearing." Eli opened it. The first document was another supplemental statement, broader than the ones he had already signed. It described Harlan as the supervising passenger and identified Eli as the officer responsible for operating the cruiser. Eli read the sentence twice before looking up. "This says I was driving. It says the vehicle records associate your credentials with the driver position. That is not the same thing. It will be if the task force tries to turn this into a criminal matter." Eli kept his expression neutral, although the recorder in his pocket suddenly felt more valuable than every document in the room. "You told me the case would hold." "It should, but intelligent men prepare for several outcomes, and your second outcome is that I caused the collision." Harlan sat across from him. "My second outcome is that the department survives. You are still thinking about individual blame when the real issue is institutional protection." "Institutional protection for whom?" "For everyone who understands what Williams was trying to do." Eli lowered his eyes to the statement. "What exactly was she trying to do?" Harlan leaned back, now speaking with the confidence he used when instructing a junior officer. "She had original files that were never supposed to leave controlled storage. Someone placed them inside that old car because they believed an offline device could protect them from review." "Review or deletion?" Harlan's gaze sharpened. Be careful how you phrase questions. I am trying to understand what I am expected to defend. The answer satisfied Harlan enough to keep him talking. The device was hidden near the rear trunk panel. The impact was supposed to damage the housing and give us lawful custody of the vehicle. Once it entered municipal evidence storage, the problem could be contained. Eli forced himself not to react. It was the first direct admission that the collision had targeted the trunk. You knew where it was? I knew the general location. From Voss? Harlan paused. Eli immediately softened the question. I mean, from whoever provided the route information. Harlan studied him for a moment, then continued. Daniel understands how these systems work. He also understands that technology contractors do not survive by allowing every government employee to carry internal records home. So he gave you Maya's location. He gave us enough to prevent an illegal transfer, and the car happened to die on the same road. Harlan smiled slightly. Modern vehicles can be encouraged to stop when someone knows which signals to interrupt. Eli understood that the sedan's failure had not been accidental either. He kept his voice conversational. What happens if the device survived? Voss believes the core was damaged. That was not my question. Harlan's expression showed mild approval, as though Eli were finally learning to think strategically. If it survived, the metadata from the convoy becomes the next concern. Those vehicles recorded the scene from multiple angles, but recordings without authentication are vulnerable. Before the hearing, the timestamps and digital signatures will no longer support admission. You can erase footage from federal vehicles? Do not confuse access with ownership. Every system depends on someone maintaining it. And Voss maintains theirs. He maintains enough. Eli looked back at the prepared statement. Then why do you need me to accept responsibility? Because digital evidence sometimes leaves fragments, and people sometimes become sentimental when questioned under oath. If Kim restores enough video to create doubt, the department will need a contained explanation. Me, a probationary officer, made a driving error, panicked, and entered the wrong account. His supervising lieutenant relied on what he was told. The department disciplines the officer, changes procedure, and moves forward. You would let me lose my career. Harlan's voice remained calm. You are assuming you still have a career without my protection. Eli let the silence remain long enough to sound defeated. What do you want me to sign? Harlan pushed the document closer. This is not being filed now. It is a contingency statement. You acknowledge that you may have operated the cruiser, that you disabled the camera without authorization, and that Lieutenant Harlan had no prior knowledge of your actions. That makes me responsible for everything. It gives the city one problem instead of 20. Eli picked up the pen Harlan had placed beside the folder but did not use it. Instead, he removed his own metal pen from his pocket. Harlan noticed. New pen? Bought it after the last one leaked on my report. The explanation was ordinary enough that Harlan lost interest. Eli signed with a variation of his usual signature, changing the angle of the first letter and pressing harder on the final stroke. The differences were small, but deliberate. He wanted a document examiner to see that this signature had not been produced under normal conditions. Harlan collected the statement. You are making the correct decision. I am making the decision that keeps me close enough to know what happens next. Harlan misunderstood the meaning and nodded. Then stay useful. At Samuel's office, Maya watched a replay of the press conference without sound. Eli stood beside Harlan with the disciplined posture of an officer supporting his commander. She had listened carefully to his narrow wording, but it did not reduce her anger. He could have told the truth at the roadside, she said. He could have refused the first report. He could have contacted Rachel before standing in front of those cameras. Samuel poured fresh coffee and returned the pot to the warmer. All true. Then why do you keep suggesting there may be more to his behavior? Because he avoided every statement that would become a direct lie under oath. He signed direct lies. Yes. He helped Harlan turn me into a public threat. Yes. Maya looked at him. You sound as though you are defending him. I am not. Fear may explain an action without excusing it. I am only asking whether his public words serve the same purpose as his signatures. Rachel entered with a folder containing the latest technical audit. We found another connection between Voss and the contractor account, she said. Still indirect, but the payment pattern matches the dates of altered precinct files. Can you remove him from the operation? Maya asked. Not without alerting him. If he is the leak, he may lead us to the rest of the network. Samuel nodded. The same principle applies to Turner. Maya folded her arms. You think both men are pretending to belong where they stand. I think Voss is pretending to protect you, Samuel said. Turner may be pretending to protect Harlan. The difficulty is that only one of those deceptions serves the truth. Across town, Harlan placed Eli's contingency confession inside a locked cabinet and made another encrypted call. Turner is contained, he said. The voice on the other end asked, and the convoy records? Voss will handle them before the hearing. What about the girl? Her accounts are frozen, her access is gone, and the city believes she operated a hidden surveillance system. By the time she explains the collision, no one will remember why it mattered. Eli stood outside the partially closed office door, reviewing a patrol schedule while the pen in his pocket captured every word. He had signed Harlan's papers, stood beside him on television, and allowed Maya to believe he had chosen the lie completely. For the first time, however, Harlan's own voice existed outside the reports he controlled. Eli walked away without looking back, carrying the one record Harlan did not know had been created. The hearing was scheduled for 9 o'clock the following morning, and by late afternoon, Rachel's technical team had begun the final authentication process for the recordings collected by the 11 armored SUVs. Each vehicle had captured the industrial road from a different position, producing 22 separate video streams that could be synchronized through their timestamps, GPS coordinates, and digital signatures. Taken together, the recordings showed every fact Harlan had denied. Maya was already standing beside the road before the patrol car arrived. The hazard lights were active, the reflective triangle was visible, and the sedan remained stationary while the cruiser crossed the open lane and struck the trunk. One camera clearly showed Eli seated on the passenger side. Rachel watched the synchronized footage in the secure review room, while 2 forensic technicians verified the source files. Maya and Samuel stood behind the observation glass, unable to hear the technical discussion but able to see the collision repeated from several angles. For the first time, Maya could watch the event without relying on memory. Harlan's movement toward the shoulder was not sudden or defensive. It was controlled, direct, and completed without any attempt to brake. Samuel studied one angle from the northern perimeter. That should answer. Who was driving? It should answer everything, Maya said. Samuel did not share her certainty. Evidence answers only after a court agrees to hear it. Inside the review room, Rachel signed the first authentication sheet. The footage would be transferred to offline trial drives, with each file tied to the original vehicle, device certificate, and collection record. Once the process was complete, Harlan would have little room to describe the collision as a mechanical accident. Daniel Voss entered carrying an encrypted maintenance unit. Rachel looked up. Why are you here? Vehicle 9 reported a certificate mismatch during the overnight integrity check. Which technician authorized maintenance? No one. The system generated the notice automatically. Rachel extended her hand. Give me the unit. Voss held it for a moment, longer than necessary. If the certificate is unstable, we should verify the other vehicles before creating the court copies. We are already creating them. Then you may be preserving corrupted files. Rachel took the device from him. No external maintenance connection enters this room until I review the alert. Voss remained near the door. The hearing is in less than 16 hours. I know the schedule. The defense will challenge anything we cannot fully authenticate, which is why you will provide me with the raw certificate history and leave the review room. His expression did not change, but he understood that Rachel no longer trusted him. He left without argument. Maya watched him cross the corridor. He knows we are close. Samuel nodded. Then tonight is when he has to act. Rachel joined them several minutes later. The certificate notice was false. Vehicle 9 reported no mismatch. Can you suspend Voss's credentials? Maya asked. I already restricted them. Does he know? He will when he tries to access the primary server. Samuel looked toward the review room. And what access remains? Rachel hesitated. Maintenance systems, archival routing, and backup management. His duties require broader permissions than most engineers. Required, Samuel said. or designed. Rachel accepted the criticism. We are about to find out. Shortly after 11 that night, Voss entered a contractor support office 3 floors below the evidence room. His primary credentials had been restricted, but years earlier he had helped create an emergency maintenance channel for use when the main authentication system failed. The access route did not appear on ordinary user screens because it operated through the contractor's remote management layer. He connected a service device and entered a rotating code supplied by the city technology vendor. The system accepted him. Voss did not erase the videos themselves. Complete deletion would have been obvious and might have produced recoverable audit records. Instead, he attacked everything that allowed the court to trust them. He removed original timestamps, corrupted digital signatures, severed links to the vehicle certificates, and altered several file headers so that the recordings appeared to have been opened and modified after collection. He then deleted the cloud mirrors and replaced the backup index with an earlier maintenance copy that showed no preserved files. The images survived, but their history did not. By the time the system issued its first integrity warning, Voss had disconnected the service device and left the building under an approved contractor exit code. Rachel received the alert at 3:18 inches the morning. She returned to the operations floor within 20 minutes and found the review room filled with technicians. Error messages covered the main display. The synchronized timeline had separated into 22 independent files, each marked with a failed authentication warning. "What happened?" she asked. A technician moved aside to let her see the server status. "The original signatures are gone. The files still play, but the certificate links have been broken. Restore them from the cloud mirror." The mirror was deleted. The secondary backup. The index points to an empty archive. Rachel accessed the maintenance log. The entries showed no unauthorized connection, but one scheduled system task had run under a contractor-level process that did not identify an individual operator. "Where is Voss?" "No one has seen him since yesterday evening." Rachel called his number. It went directly to voicemail. At 4:06, she contacted Maya and Samuel. They arrived at the task force building before dawn. Rachel met them in the conference room with the failed authentication report in front of her. "We still have the video," she said, "but the metadata, timestamps, and original signatures have been destroyed. The defense can argue that the files were edited or rearranged after collection." Maya stared at her. "You said his access was restricted." "It was. Then how did he enter?" "He used a contractor maintenance channel that should have required a second authorization. Someone outside this building kept it active." "Can you prove it was Voss?" "Not yet. The maintenance log was overwritten." Samuel read the report carefully. "Can the footage still be admitted?" "Possibly, but not as clean primary evidence. Without a reliable chain of authentication, the judge may exclude it until we establish an independent timeline." Maya looked through the glass at the monitors. The recordings still showed Harlan driving into her sedan, yet the warning labels placed across the screens made every image appear questionable. 11 vehicles recorded the same event, she said. "How can one man make all of them legally silent?" "He did not change what they saw," Rachel replied. "He changed our ability to prove when and how they saw it." Maya turned away, trying to control the anger building behind her composure. The task force had surrounded the scene, sealed the vehicles, and preserved 22 views, but the most advanced evidence in the case had still depended on a system Voss understood better than those assigned to supervise him. Samuel placed the report on the table. "What remains independent?" "The roadside call," Rachel said. "The service provider created an offline copy before we requested it." "And Isaiah's device?" "Untouched. It was never connected to this network." Rachel opened the mechanical data file. The device recorded the exact count at which the impact occurred, the position of the wheels, the parking brake tension, and the sedan's location. Its internal clock was not digital in the ordinary sense, but the rescue call contained the sound of the collision and a verified telephone timestamp. Rachel began to understand the possibility. If we align the impact sound from the rescue call with the mechanical counter, we can establish the collision time. The hazard lights flashed at a fixed interval, so that pattern may allow us to synchronize each video independently. "Would that restore the deleted metadata?" Maya asked. No. It would create an external method of authenticating the sequence. Has a court accepted that method before? Not in a case like this. Samuel closed the file. Then we will ask this court to be the first. As morning approached, news crews gathered outside the Fulton County Courthouse. Harlan arrived in uniform and entered through the public doors with Eli beside him. He appeared composed because Voss had completed the task exactly as promised. Maya arrived shortly afterward, carrying no phone, no government identification, and no visible evidence beyond the bent ignition key in her hand. A reporter called from behind the security barrier. "Miss Williams, did your task force falsify the armored convoy footage?" She did not answer. Beyond the courthouse windows, the 11 black SUVs stood in 2 orderly rows. Their cameras had captured the truth from every direction. But only hours before the hearing, someone had removed the information that allowed them to speak with authority. To make them witnesses again, Maya would have to rely on the one machine Harlan had tried to destroy first. The hearing opened at 9 o'clock in a courtroom, already crowded with reporters, city attorneys, police representatives, and members of the public who had followed the case through weeks of headlines. Maya sat beside Samuel at the petitioner's table while Rachel occupied the row behind them with 2 technical specialists. Across the aisle, Harlan wore his dress uniform and maintained the composed expression that had carried him through every press conference. Eli sat several seats away from him. He did not look at Maya. The first issue before the court was whether the recordings from the 11 armored SUVs could be admitted. Rachel's team had submitted 22 video files, along with affidavits explaining the deleted metadata and their proposed method of reconstructing the sequence through the roadside call and Isaiah's mechanical device. The city objected immediately. The files no longer contain reliable original timestamps, digital signatures, or verifiable certificate links, the city attorney argued. Whatever the images appear to show, the court cannot determine whether they were altered, reordered, or synchronized after collection. Samuel rose slowly. The recordings were collected by independent vehicles at the scene and preserved by the task force. Their authentication data did not disappear through ordinary failure. It was deliberately removed hours before this hearing. That allegation has not been proved. The destruction itself is part of what we are here to examine. The judge, Evelyn Marshall, reviewed the technical affidavits for several minutes. She was known for allowing attorneys room to develop difficult evidence, but not for relaxing foundational rules because the result seemed important. "I am not excluding the recordings permanently," she said at last. "However, in their current condition, they will not be admitted as primary evidence. Counsel may renew the request if an independent and reliable authentication method is established." Harlan did not smile, but Maya saw his shoulders ease. The screen's position near the jury box went dark. 22 views of the collision remained outside the official record. Samuel sat down without visible disappointment. Maya leaned toward him. "He thinks he won." "He won the first ruling," Samuel replied. "That is not the same thing." The court then turned to Harlan's official conduct and the request to preserve evidence connected to the collision. The city called him first. Harlan walked to the witness stand, raised his right hand, and swore to tell the truth. His voice was steady, and his answers began with the practiced restraint of a senior officer describing a routine event. He testified that he and Eli had been responding to a report of a disabled vehicle when they encountered Maya's sedan on the industrial road. According to Harlan, the vehicle appeared unattended and improperly secured. As the cruiser approached, the sedan rolled backward into the patrol car. "Did you deliberately strike Miss Williams's vehicle?" the city attorney asked. "No." "Did you know there was a storage device inside the trunk before the collision?" "No." "Did you direct anyone to disable the cruiser camera?" "No." "The system failed during the approach. Were you driving?" Harlan paused just long enough to make the answer appear careful. "No." "Officer Turner was operating the vehicle." A murmur passed through the courtroom. Maya looked toward Eli. His face remained still, but one hand tightened around the edge of his chair. The city attorney displayed the altered assignment records and terminal logs. Each document identified Eli as the driver and Harlan as the supervising passenger. The cropped garage image appeared next, showing Eli with the cruiser keys. Were these records created in the ordinary course of department operations? The attorney asked. To my knowledge, yes. Did you alter them? No. Did you ask anyone else to alter them? No. Harlan then testified that Maya's parking brake may have failed, causing the sedan to move. He claimed she became confrontational after the collision and invoked her relationship with the outside task force to prevent a lawful vehicle inspection. Did you attempt to destroy evidence? The attorney asked. Absolutely not. Did you know what the device contained? I did not know there was a device until task force personnel prevented us from opening the trunk. Did you participate in deleting or corrupting the armored convoy recordings? No. Do you know Daniel Voss? I have met him in professional settings involving public safety technology. Did Mr. Voss provide you with Miss Williams's location? No. Each answer was delivered without hesitation. Harlan was no longer merely preserving the first report. He was expanding it under oath, attaching his career, rank, and personal credibility to every disputed fact. When Samuel stood for cross-examination, he carried only a legal pad. Lieutenant Harlan, you testified that Miss Williams's vehicle rolled backward. Yes. You saw the wheels moving? The vehicle moved into our cruiser. That was not my question. Did you see the wheels rotating? I was responding to a developing hazard. Did you see them rotate? I cannot say that I observed each wheel individually. Samuel nodded, as though the answer were expected. You also testified that the parking brake may have failed. Did you inspect it? At the scene? I was prevented from completing the inspection. Did you touch the parking brake lever after the sedan entered custody? No. Did you direct anyone else to touch it? No. Did you request access to the vehicle after it was sealed? I requested that local law enforcement retain lawful custody. Samuel glanced toward the judge. Please answer the question. Did you request access? Yes. Through proper channels. Before or after you learned the task force had removed the vehicle from the road? After. Did your request identify the trunk as the primary area of interest? Harlan's expression remained controlled. I believed the vehicle might contain unauthorized equipment, but moments ago you testified that you did not know a device existed until personnel blocked access to the trunk. I became concerned based on Miss Williams's behavior and the reaction of the arriving unit. Samuel moved to the next subject. You stated Officer Turner was driving. Is that your testimony under oath? Yes. Even though your first report identified you as the driver? The city attorney stood. Objection. The report does not contain that statement. Samuel lifted a certified copy. The initial roadside notation submitted under Lieutenant Harlan's authorization identifies the operator as Brent Harlan. The assignment record was amended later. The judge examined the document and overruled the objection. Harlan looked at the page from the witness stand. Preliminary roadside entries are often corrected. Who corrected it? I do not know. You expect this court to believe the driver's identity was wrong in the first record, then corrected by an unknown person after the collision? I expect the court to rely on the final verified records. Records maintained through systems overseen by Daniel Voss? I do not know who maintains each system. Samuel allowed the answer to remain in the room before continuing. You have also denied knowing where the storage device was located before the impact. That is correct. Then why did you ask Miss Williams about electronics in the trunk before anyone opened the car? Harlan shifted slightly. The rear compartment was visibly damaged, and the convoy's response suggested sensitive material. You asked before the convoy arrived. I do not recall the precise sequence. Do you recall telling Maya Williams that the impact should have finished what her father started? No. You never mentioned her father? No. You never said the impact should have finished anything? No. Samuel returned to his table and consulted his notes. Maya understood what he was doing. He was not yet trying to defeat Harlan's version. He was giving Harlan room to make it complete. The city attorney attempted to repair the testimony on redirect. Lieutenant, is it possible that the stress of the scene affected the exact order in which certain statements were made? Yes. But are you certain the sedan moved? Yes. Are you certain Officer Turner was driving? Yes. Are you certain you had no prior knowledge of a hidden device? Yes. And did you have any involvement in the loss of the convoy metadata? None. Harlan stepped down from the witness stand, believing he had survived the most difficult part of the hearing. Samuel remained seated until the courtroom settled. Then, he looked toward Rachel. She nodded. A court officer opened the side door, and two evidence technicians entered carrying a compact metal case between them. They placed it on a reinforced cart and rolled it toward the front of the courtroom. The room grew quiet. The casing was dented along one edge, and part of the outer shell still bore the force marks from the collision. Heavy seals covered the access points, each marked with handwritten dates, initials, and chain of custody numbers. Harlan stared at it for the first time without the protection of a television camera or prepared statement. Samuel rose. "Your Honor, the petitioner asks permission to introduce the independently preserved mechanical recorder recovered from Isaiah Williams's sedan." The city attorney stood immediately. "We object pending authentication. You will have the opportunity to challenge it," Samuel said. "Unlike the deleted digital records, this device retains its original sequence without relying on a network, cloud server, contractor certificate, or remotely managed timestamp." Judge Marshall looked from the sealed case to Harlan. "What does the petitioner contend this device will establish?" Samuel placed one hand on the evidence table. It recorded whether the sedan moved, whether the parking brake was engaged, the direction of the impact, and whether the brake was altered after the vehicle entered official custody. Harlan's composure did not disappear, but for the first time that morning, it required effort. Samuel turned toward him, and because Lieutenant Harlan has now denied each of those facts under oath, the machine is no longer merely evidence of a collision. It is evidence of whether this court has just been deliberately deceived. Judge Marshall allowed the mechanical recorder to be examined outside the presence of the public for 20 minutes before testimony resumed. The city's attorney, Samuel, Rachel, and an independent forensic engineer were permitted to observe the verification process, while the sealed case remained under the court officer's control. When the courtroom reopened, the engineer took the witness stand. Dr. Helen Ward was 61 and had spent more than 3 decades testing transportation systems, industrial recorders, and failure-resistant control devices. She carried no presentation materials beyond a bound report and several enlarged photographs of Isaiah's machine. Samuel approached the witness stand. "Dr. Ward, did you examine the recorder recovered from Maya Williams's vehicle?" "Yes." "Was it connected to the sedan's wireless, navigation, or communication systems?" "No. It had no wireless interface." "Could it receive remote commands?" "No." "Could its records be deleted through the city network or the task force system?" "No." The city attorney stood. "Objection. That assumes the device functioned as designed." Judge Marshall looked toward Dr. Ward. "Can you establish that?" "Yes, Your Honor." The objection was overruled. Dr. Ward explained that Isaiah had built the recorder around independent mechanical counters and physical sensors attached to the parking brake assembly, rear wheel locks, and trunk reinforcement frame. A reserve battery powered the storage module, but the event sequence itself depended on changes in pressure, motion, and mechanical position, rather than on GPS or cloud-based timestamps. "The device was simple by modern standards," she said. "That simplicity is one reason the record survived." Samuel displayed the first diagram. What occurred after the sedan lost engine power? The main electrical system dropped at 9:42 p.m. 13 seconds later, the parking brake was engaged fully. Both rear wheel sensors registered a locked position. Did the vehicle move before impact? No. The answer produced a quiet reaction throughout the courtroom. Samuel waited until the room settled. "How certain are you?" The wheel counters recorded no rotation. The pressure sensor showed no release in the brake mechanism, and the motion unit registered no displacement until an external force was applied from the rear. Could the sedan have rolled without the wheels rotating? No. The city attorney began writing rapidly. Samuel changed the exhibit to a graph showing the impact data. "What does this line represent?" "The force entering the rear structure." "From what direction?" "Directly from behind, with a slight angle from the left." "Consistent with the sedan rolling backward into a cruiser?" "No. The data shows the sedan was struck by another vehicle moving forward." Harlan sat motionless at the defense table, but the confidence he had carried onto the witness stand was gone. Eli watched the graph without lifting his head. Samuel moved to the final mechanical record. Did the parking brake position change after the collision? Yes. When? After the vehicle had entered official custody. What changed? The lever was lowered by 1 position. The adjustment was not enough to release the brake completely, but it altered the mechanism in a way that could make a later inspection appear uncertain. The city attorney rose. The device cannot identify who touched the lever. That is correct, Dr. Ward said. It cannot identify the driver of the patrol car. Not by itself. It does not contain a conventional clock certified by any government authority. No. So the times presented in your report were reconstructed. The absolute time was established through an independent source. The sequence itself remained intact. Samuel looked toward the rear of the courtroom. Your Honor, we call Karen Ellis. The roadside assistance operator entered wearing a Navy business suit and carrying a certified copy of the call record. She appeared nervous until she saw Maya, who gave her a small nod. Karen testified that Maya had called before the patrol cruiser arrived. The company system recorded the connection time automatically through an outside telecommunications provider. During the call, Maya confirmed that the sedan was fully off the road. The parking brake was engaged, the warning triangle was placed, and no one remained inside the vehicle. Did you hear the collision? Samuel asked. Yes. Did the call disconnect? No. What did Miss Williams say immediately afterward? She said the officer had driven into her car and asked me to preserve the call. The recording was played. Maya's voice came through the courtroom speakers, calm but strained. Karen's questions followed, then the low approach of the cruiser engine. The sound of impact was sudden and unmistakable. Several seconds later, Harlan's voice could be heard in the background, asking whether there was electronic equipment in the trunk. Samuel stopped the recording. Miss Ellis, had anyone opened the trunk at that point? No. Had the armored vehicles arrived? No. I heard them later. The city attorney cross-examined her carefully. You could not see the road? No. You cannot identify who was driving the cruiser? No. You relied on what Miss Williams told you about the brake. For the brake? Yes. For the collision? I heard it. When Karen stepped down, Samuel returned to Dr. Ward. Can the verified call time be aligned with the recorder's mechanical sequence? Yes. How? The collision sound marks the exact impact moment. The recorder registered the same event through the trunk frame sensor. Once those points are matched, the mechanical count establishes every event before and after impact. Rachel's team projected the reconstructed sequence onto the screen. At 9:42 p.m., the engine failed. 13 seconds later, the brake engaged. The wheel sensors remained locked. The cruiser struck the sedan. More than half an hour later, after custody had changed, the brake lever was lowered. Samuel faced the judge. The petitioner renews the request to authenticate the convoy recordings. Each vehicle captured the sedan's hazard lights. Those lights flashed at a fixed interval recorded by the mechanical system. The impact sound provides the common reference point. The independent device allows each video to be aligned without relying on the deleted metadata. The city objected again, arguing that the method was experimental. Judge Marshall reviewed the engineer's report and the call certification before ruling. The court will permit limited synchronization testimony. The recordings remain subject to further challenge, but the petitioner has established an independent basis sufficient to continue. For the first time, the dark courtroom monitors came back on. One by one, the 22 views appeared. The sedan stood motionless on the shoulder. The warning triangle was visible. Harlan's cruiser approached with a clear lane beside it. From several angles, the driver could be seen turning deliberately toward the trunk. The passenger was Eli Turner. Harlan leaned toward the city attorney and whispered urgently. A moment later, the attorney stood. The city requests a brief recess. Samuel remained facing the bench. Before the court rules, there is one more matter. Lieutenant Harlan testified that Officer Turner was driving. These recordings show otherwise. Harlan rose without permission. The files were manipulated. Judge Marshall's expression hardened. Sit down, Lieutenant. Eli remained in his chair as every camera in the courtroom turned toward him. Harlan had named him under oath, placed him behind the wheel, and prepared records that could end his career. Samuel looked across the aisle. "Officer Turner, this court has not called you as a witness. However, if you possess information relevant to altered records, the disabled camera, or Lieutenant Harlan's prior knowledge of the device, now is the time to inform your counsel." Harlan spoke before Eli could move. "He has nothing." Eli slowly reached inside his uniform jacket. Two court officers stepped forward, but he raised one hand. "It is not a weapon." He removed the metal recording pen and placed it on the table. Harlan stared at it. Eli stood, his voice unsteady at first but clear enough to reach the judge. "I signed reports I knew were false. I did it because Lieutenant Harlan showed me records designed to make me the driver, and I believed he could destroy my career before anyone heard the truth." The city attorney turned toward him. "Officer Turner, do not say anything further without representation." Eli looked at the pen. "He told me the impact was meant to damage the device. He told me Daniel Voss would remove the convoy authentication before the hearing. He told me I would take responsibility if anything survived." Harlan pushed back from the table. "He is lying to save himself." Eli met his eyes for the first time. "I was afraid of you when the truth depended on my word." He placed his hand beside the recorder. "It does not anymore." 6 months after the courthouse hearing, the industrial road looked almost unchanged. Delivery trucks still passed the warehouses before sunrise, broken glass still gathered near the curb after storms, and drivers still used the shoulder when an engine failed. Yet the collision that had taken place there had altered more than a police report. The investigation expanded quickly once Daniel Voss's contractor accounts were opened under court order. His archived messages identified the officials who had approved unauthorized access, the technicians who had altered evidence records, and the union representatives who had coordinated public attacks against drivers before their cases reached court. Payments that had appeared unrelated were traced through consulting firms, technology vendors, and legal defense accounts. Several city employees were dismissed. 2 contractors lost their public safety agreements. Criminal indictments followed for evidence tampering, conspiracy, obstruction, and misuse of government systems. Brent Harlan was formally dismissed from the department and stripped of rank after an internal hearing conducted under independent supervision. His commendations were removed from public display pending review of the cases connected to his name. The badge he had surrendered in court was entered into evidence rather than returned to the precinct. Daniel Voss was charged with unauthorized system access, destruction of authentication records, conspiracy, and obstruction of justice. Investigators determined that he had used city technology contracts to create hidden maintenance channels across several agencies, allowing the network to alter records while leaving senior officials with plausible deniability. The public statements that had once described Maya as a technological threat were quietly removed from department websites. But Samuel insisted that deletion was not enough. "A false accusation does not become harmless because someone takes it off a page," he told the review commission. "The correction must be at least as visible as the lie." A formal statement clearing Maya was broadcast from the same police union room where Harlan had accused her. The city acknowledged that her sedan had been stationary, her parking brake had been engaged, and the hidden recorder had preserved evidence of repeated official misconduct. The Attorney General's office confirmed that Maya had acted within her assigned responsibilities. Marcus Bell delivered the reinstatement letter personally. He met Maya in the new evidence review office, a renovated section of the state records building that operated independently from the departments it investigated. The walls were still bare, and several desks had not yet been assembled. A sealed cabinet containing the first corrected case files stood near the entrance. Marcus placed the letter on Maya's desk. "You are restored to your former position with full back pay," he said. "You are also being offered leadership of this office." Maya read the first page but did not sign. "Under whose authority?" "A joint board appointed by the Attorney General, the State Inspector General, and 2 independent judges." "Who controls technical access?" "Your office." "Who audits the auditors?" "An outside panel with published findings." "Can the department suspend the work because a case becomes politically difficult?" "No. Put that in writing." Marcus nodded. "It already is." She turned to the final page. There had been a time when she would have accepted reinstatement as proof that the institution had corrected itself. Now she understood that returning to the same structure without changing its protections would only restore the conditions that had allowed Harlan to operate. "I will accept," she said. "But the office does not answer to the precincts it reviews, and no evidence system will depend on one administrator's credentials." "Agreed." Marcus remained standing. "I should have protected the investigation when the pressure began," he said. "Instead, I protected the office." Maya looked at him. "You placed me on leave before asking who benefited from removing me." "I did. You allowed official caution to produce the same result Harlan wanted." "I know." His apology did not erase the consequences, but he did not weaken it with an excuse. Maya signed the letter. "Then help us build something that does not require courage from one person every time the system is tested." "I will." Eli Turner faced a separate disciplinary process. His recordings had exposed the conspiracy, but the review board also found that he had signed false reports and remained silent while Maya was publicly accused. He lost his position at the 12th precinct and received a lengthy suspension from active duty. Before any future return, he was required to complete ethics training, testify in every affected case, and accept permanent notation of his misconduct in his employment record. When he met Maya outside the review office, he did not ask for forgiveness. "I wanted to tell you I was sorry," he said. "You already said that in your testimony." "I said I was afraid. That explained what I did, but it did not repair what it cost you." "No." He looked through the glass wall at the employees organizing sealed files. "I kept thinking there would be a safer moment to tell the truth. There usually is not." "I know that now." Maya studied him for a moment. "What you recorded mattered. What you signed also mattered. You will have to live with both." Eli nodded. "I intend to." Leonard Brooks's conviction was vacated 3 weeks later. The court found that the original report had been materially altered and that evidence had been withheld during plea negotiations. His misdemeanor record was removed. His commercial driving certification was restored, and the city issued a public correction. Leonard attended the hearing but refused the city's invitation to stand beside officials during the announcement. "They wanted a photograph of the system fixing itself," he told Maya afterward. "I told them the system did not fix itself. People forced it to stop lying." Teresa Hall and Calvin Moore received new hearings. More than 40 additional cases were reopened, including several involving drivers who had lost jobs, homes, or professional licenses because altered records portrayed stationary vehicles as threats. Isaiah's belongings were eventually returned to Maya. Every notebook, tool, key, and envelope came back in evidence packaging, marked with government numbers. She spent an entire weekend removing the labels carefully, refusing to tear the paper or damage the objects beneath them. The repaired toolbox returned to the hall closet. The old repair notebooks went back on the shelf. The bent ignition key remained on Maya's desk at the new review office. Beside it sat a piece of metal cut from the crushed trunk, the sealed mechanical core, and the first corrected copy of Leonard Brooks's report. Together, they formed no monument in the ceremonial sense. There was no marble plaque, no official portrait, and no polished statement about institutional courage. They were simply the objects that had refused to support a lie. Rachel Kim continued leading the technical task force, though its systems were rebuilt under independent audit. No engineer retained unrestricted maintenance access. Every emergency channel required dual physical authorization, and all critical evidence was preserved through both networked and offline methods. On the first anniversary of the collision, Rachel visited Maya's office. "The final convoy vehicles are being released from evidentiary hold," she said. All 11. All 11. Maya looked through the window toward the state complex. The black SUVs were parked in 2 rows below, just as they had been outside the courthouse. "What happens to them?" "They return to regular service." "No ceremony?" Rachel smiled slightly. Samuel said, "Ceremonies create speeches, and speeches create opportunities for people to take credit." "That sounds like him." The 2 women went outside as the teams prepared to leave. The SUVs started one after another, their engines settling into a steady rhythm. There were no reporters, no officials, and no crowd waiting to applaud. Samuel stood near the entrance holding a cup of black coffee. "You could have worn a coat," Maya told him. "I did. It is in the car." That does not help you here. At my age, advice and weather have the same effect. Both arrive whether I accept them or not. Rachel shook her head. The first SUV moved toward the gate. The others followed at measured intervals until the parking area was empty. Maya remained beside Samuel, watching the last vehicle turn onto the road. Her name had been restored in the public record, but she no longer believed that justice meant returning everything to the way it had been. Some losses could not be reversed. Some apologies arrived after the damage had already become part of a life. Eli's truth had not erased his silence. Marcus's reinstatement had not erased his surrender to pressure. And the city's correction had not returned the years taken from Leonard Brooks. Justice was not a return to innocence. It was the decision to build a record strong enough that the next lie would have fewer places to hide. Maya went back inside and entered the evidence room. On the center table rested Isaiah's machine, its damaged housing preserved exactly as it had been recovered from the sedan. A technician asked whether she wanted the mechanical counter reset before the device was placed on permanent display. Maya looked at the final number. "No," she said. "Leave it where it stopped." The technician closed the clear protective cover. Outside, the last armored SUV disappeared into Atlanta traffic. Inside the quiet room, the corrected files stood in ordered rows, each one carrying the name of someone who had once been told that an official record mattered more than the truth. Isaiah's machine had never understood fear, rank, race, or authority. It had only recorded what happened. When powerful men changed the reports, erased the timestamps, and placed their signatures beneath the lie, the machine kept counting. This story reminds us that truth does not always arrive first, and justice does not always come easily. Fear, power, and false records can silence people for a time, but courage, patience, and honest evidence can still bring the truth back into the light. Real justice is not only about clearing one person's name, it is also about changing the system, so that fewer innocent people are forced to suffer in silence. Thank you for staying with us until the very end of this story. Your time, attention, and support mean more than you may realize. We would also love to hear your thoughts about the way this story was told. Was the pacing clear? Were the emotions strong enough? Were there any moments you found especially meaningful or any parts you believe could be improved? And if you have a powerful true story, a meaningful life experience, or a story about injustice, courage, loyalty, or redemption, please consider sharing it with our channel. Your story may inspire someone, give hope to a listener, or help another person feel that they are not alone. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.